Now, you may well have seen my name mentioned on social media in the last day because of comments I made about celiac disease during a segment on This Morning. This is just a little bit of what I said.
Alison's mother-in-law has got them coming for Christmas, and because one person has to be gluten-free, she's insisting that they're all gluten-free, including Alison's 15-year-old, who's a bit of a fussy eater. And when Alison said, can we bring our own food then? You know, just can he bring food in a snack box? She said no. So she's treating celiac disease as if it's a kind of potentially fatal peanut allergy, and that they can't have anything with gluten in the house, which is completely unreasonable.
Joining me now is Jason Samuel, who has celiac disease himself, and also emergency medicine doctor, Dr. Saleyha Ahsan. I think we'll start with you, Dr. Ahsan. Let me just explain. This is a caller to This Morning yesterday who said, oh, gosh, we've got to go to my mother-in-law's for Christmas Day lunch. My son's a very fussy eater, and there's a celiac attending, and my mother-in-law is insisting that we all eat gluten-free. So I said what I said there, which is, what you heard what I said, and then I said, but I've been thinking about it, and in the spirit of Christmas, I think you should go. I think you should eat the gluten-free meal that your mother-in-law is kindly preparing. And, you know, if your son refuses to eat a gluten-free meal, I'm not sure why he should, then give him a picnic on the way there or on the way home in the car. I did not, nor would I for a second, suggest that they should put the celiac guest at risk in any way, nor did I suggest that they bring their own food and shove it in their mother-in-law's oven or put it on the table. I wouldn't dream of that. And nor did I intend in any shape or form to show any disrespect or misunderstanding of how unpleasant it can be leading your life as a celiac, partly because some of my best friends are celiacs, and I spend a lot of time in Ireland, where a huge proportion of the population are celiac, suffering from celiac disease. So I know how horrible it is as a celiac if by any mistake you should find yourself eating, heaven forbid, something with gluten in it. So I'm astounded by the reaction. I'm horrified that anyone's upset. I never would want to upset anyone. And I don't actually think I said anything that was wrong. I checked before the show. I checked with Dr. Philippa Kay after the show. I don't think I said anything wrong, but if anyone misunderstood or felt that I did, I'm very sorry. So let's start with you, Doctor. Let's explain what it is to be a celiac and how important it is for celiacs to eat gluten-free, which I completely acknowledge and think I said yesterday.
You know what? First of all, I think what has inadvertently happened is that some much needed spotlight has been brought onto celiac, so we can all learn more about it. So
Yes.
Glass half full. We're having this conversation. We're all going to be better informed about celiac disease and what's involved. So it's basically an autoimmune disorder, and that's where your own body's defense that would normally fight infection mistakenly attacks healthy-ish tissue if you eat gluten. Now, this doesn't affect everyone. It's about 1 in 100 people across the UK that have it. And so what exactly is gluten? So it's a dietary protein, and it's found in 3 types of cereals: wheat, barley, and rye. So if you think about all the foods that exists in, there's more than you would think. And that's why within supermarkets, you'll see all these aisles and product shelves with gluten-free. There's no cure. You can develop it at any age. And certain people, for example, if you've got a relative that's got first-degree relative that's got it, your chances of getting it are higher. And it can make you feel pretty yucky until you get the diagnosis. Now, I worked in gastroenterology for one of my times as a doctor, and I did have celiac patients, especially newly diagnosed ones, or if people came in with symptoms like bloating, abdo pain, constipation, indigestion, feeling a bit nausea and yucky, fatigue, we tested for celiacs. So those are the general kinds of symptoms that you get. You also can get malnutrition and weight loss, because when your body attacks a certain part of the intestine, it's the small intestine, it means you can't take in enough nutrients. And those nutrients are vital. You need them to make parts of your body work. You can become malnourished, you can lose weight, you can get nerve damage, you can be constantly tired and fatigued without really knowing why, and you can also get anemic. So those are the common kinds of things, and there are complications that you can get. I'm throwing a lot at you here, but just whilst I've got the chance.
Yeah, no, I'm glad. I'm very pleased. I mean, all I ever want to do is, you know, clarity, compassion, and everybody to be nice to everybody. I'm never trying to upset anybody, and I'm certainly not trying to play down how unpleasant it would be to live with celiac disease in a million years. But but this lady was saying, I don't want to have a gluten-free Christmas. And my punchline was, well, go and have one anyway. Enjoy it. I didn't say take gluten and you know, force feed it to a miserable celiac and cause them suffering. I wouldn't dream of saying that. I was saying the absolute opposite of that. But explain, maybe I'll ask Jason about this. Jason, thank you so much for joining us on the programme. I know you're a celiac. In general, do you find that in your family, for example, or in your domestic setup, or when you go out to friends, you obviously are eating gluten-free, but they are eating meals with gluten in them at the same table as you during the same meal, and that, provided everyone's careful, that works out okay?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's no way you can avoid it because it's in every restaurant, it's in every eating space. So you're never going to kind of eliminate it completely. It's just kind of learning how to live with it, learning the diet, learning the staples of what you can and can't have. For me, I will always stick to, if I'm in like a restaurant or somewhere like a friend's house, I'll kind of stick to plain items, fruits, vegetables, potatoes, rice, plain meats, that kind of thing. And then you're kind of on a good track if you can kind of do that.
And if, for example, on Christmas Day, I mean, I imagine you'll be going to family or friends, or maybe even hosting it yourself, I don't know. But will you be having a wholly gluten-free Christmas meal for everyone? Or will some people be having food with gluten and you will be having it gluten-free? How will you do it in your house?
Yeah, so I usually go to my mum's and it's a big family dinner and there'll definitely be lots of gluten on the main table, I'm sure, like Yorkshire puddings and all kinds of stuff like that I wouldn't normally be able to have, and stuffing. And like I said, I would just work around it by choosing items that I know for sure. All the vegetables will be fine. Plain roast chicken will be fine. Potatoes will be fine generally. So that will be essentially what I'd be looking to do.
Do you ever make the mistake of inadvertently eating gluten? And I know it doesn't have exactly the same effect on every celiac, I'm well aware of that, but have you ever made that mistake? And when you do, if you ever do, what happens? How do you feel?
Yeah, definitely. I'm quite good at avoiding it nowadays, but if I do by accident have some, about sort of 20 minutes or so after eating, you realise you have this kind of cramping, nagging pain around your stomach area. But a really good tip for me that I'd love to share, if in case it helps someone else, I take apple cider vinegar. If that happens, I just take a tablespoon of that mixed in a glass of water, and that really, really helps me so much.
Oh, well, I'm very glad if anybody learns anything from hearing that, then that's fantastic. Doctor, let's come back to you. So my advice was enjoy a gluten-free Christmas meal. That was my advice, nothing else. I'm not sure why so many celiacs took great offence at what I said. I think that I, you know, bore in mind absolutely what the disease is like and how important it is for celiacs to eat gluten-free. I'm well aware of that. Maybe what people would have liked me to have said, and in retrospect, I wish I had said, was how excellent of your mother-in-law to put her celiac guest in a position where she's looking after that guest so carefully. What a great mother-in-law you have, and really you should admire your mother-in-law rather than moaning about eating a gluten-free Christmas dinner. You should think, what a great mother-in-law I have who's so very careful of her celiac guest. Maybe that's what I should have said. And if I should have, I really, of course, wish I had said that.
Do you know, I think, again, I'll go back to the glass half full. This has really opened a conversation that I think is going to be a really powerful and useful conversation. And that is about, you know, inclusivity, about making everyone feel the same, that you know, going back to the caller's mother-in-law, I think that's an amazing gesture. And I think, and I was reflecting myself, to be honest, I wouldn't, look, I'm not the best cook in the world anyway, so cooking one kind of form of food would be challenging enough, but then having to do it twice for two sets of people, I'd probably make it inclusive for everyone, because I'd want I'd want a celiac guest to feel that they can pick and have a nibble, whatever they want that's on the table, without worrying that there's gluten there. But I think just looking at some of the responses as well, there was some wonderful suggestions about, about understanding what's actually out there from a perspective of choice, and how you can actually really go quite some way in preparing food and meals that you wouldn't even really realize that they are gluten-free. I think, okay, there was a bit of a backlash, but I think all responses are good responses because we learn from them. And actually, we're talking about it. We're having this conversation about it. And I think people that didn't know about it, and who might be having someone around for dinner who has celiac, will be possibly a little bit more mindful of it now, in a way. We've talked about what it is and how it can make people feel. There are more serious complications that can happen if celiac is undiagnosed, but we won't, but I've talked about the common disorders. Yeah. So it's not something that can be ignored. It's not something that is benign and doesn't impact lives. It does. But we can navigate it and control it by avoiding the trigger, and the trigger is gluten.
Absolutely.
And again,
that
I agree.
was all I was suggesting should happen. I was certainly not suggesting anything else at all. Jason, one thing that has been raised today by these very people who are, exceptionally angry with me, though last thing I wanted to do was upset anybody, and I really hope that they feel that I've made amends for saying whatever they think I said that was the wrong thing. One of the things that was raised was how expensive gluten-free products are. And I wonder whether that is an element of your life that you do notice and have to deal with on a regular basis, just the cost of it all.
Yeah, definitely. The products are a lot more expensive. And I've been gluten-free for probably nearly about 15 years now. And when I was first diagnosed, they had on the NHS that you could get food on prescription as a celiac. And I applied for that and was granted that. But then literally within a month before I'd even collected my first prescription, they ended that scheme. So I never got to benefit from that. So for the 15 years I've been paying that extra premium price, and it is a lot more expensive for all the kind of alternatives that they have now. And they have an amazing range in all the supermarkets now for bread replacements, pasta, even beer. So the ranges are very good, but they are almost probably double the price. You're looking at like a loaf of bread will be £2.50, £3.
Yeah, so that's, yes, very expensive. Well, thank you very much indeed. I really do hope that we have, dealt with the subject in an understanding and an informative way, which is all I ever really wanted to do. And I wish everybody a very Merry Christmas, and all celiacs a delicious Christmas lunch and a very, very happy and healthy New Year. Last thing I would want to do is upset anybody. I hope I have made amends.